Remember the end of December. Hey everyone, thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Ethereum and the fact that so far it seems like there may be a trend reversal against Bitcoin, but as we said a few weeks ago, it's still too early to call, right? We simply do not know yet. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So the general idea that we've been talking about for months now, and we prepared for it last year as well, was the general Q4 bleed of Ethereum against Bitcoin, and then subsequent redemption in January. Okay, and if you're new, the general trend looks something like this, where in Q4, maybe even starting in late Q3, we see a bleed against Bitcoin. And then starting either mid-December or sometime in January, as measured from the bottom in December, we tend to see a pretty nice move of Ethereum against Bitcoin. Remember, it's obviously nice that Ethereum goes up in USD. We all want that to happen, but we also want it to outperform Bitcoin, because otherwise we really can't justify holding it. So you see the first 2 years, had you bought at the bottom in December of the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation, you would have seen an 1,800% move and almost a 700% move. In the following December of 2017, you would have also seen a 400% move. Here you would have seen closer to a 60% move. And then last year, we talked about this general idea of a Q4 bleed like we've seen every other year, right? Q4 here. And then this was going into a Q4 move here. And finally, that was Q4, right? Essentially, maybe even starting late Q3, but generally the last quarter of the year, Ethereum does not tend to stack up so well against Bitcoin. Bitcoin tends to dominate during that period of time. And then in the same manner that we talked about this last year, we saw a nice move. So from the bottom, we saw a pretty significant, I should say, 64% move against Bitcoin over the next 2 months or so. Okay, and we've been speculating on this move for a while. We've seen a pretty drastic downturn of 44% of the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation over approximately 119 days. Now, as measured from the bottom, which we were just at, and people were starting to go along with the narrative of, everything is dead besides Bitcoin. From this point, so far, we're up 25%. So, and this is against Bitcoin, right? This is against Bitcoin, which is why it's important. It's a 25% move against Bitcoin. We don't care if it does a 25% move against USD. If Bitcoin's going parabolic and Ethereum's only doing 25% every 3 weeks, this is a problem, right? This is a problem. So, and it's funny because most people would love 25%. But, if Bitcoin's, say, going parabolic day to day, going up, 10, 20% a day for a few days in a row, then it can be very, worrisome if the Ethereum valuation continues to bleed. So the first thing, remember, is that it is too early to call. We don't want to count our chickens quite yet. This has been a substantial move. There's no doubt about it. We have moved up considerably in the last day. If we take a measured move from the bottom to the top, Ethereum made a 26% move. At the current level, it's around a 24% move. There's no doubt about it. This is a significant move for Ethereum. However, we expected this, right? Business as usual. We expected this to happen. We wanted this to happen because, it helps justify the idea of holding Ethereum. So the question now becomes, well, how high can it go, right? How high can it go? And the first thing we'll say, again, is that it will always come down to what Bitcoin does. If we see a $36,000 Bitcoin tomorrow or a $40,000 Bitcoin in a week, then most likely Ethereum will bleed against Bitcoin. Not definitively, there's a chance that it keeps pace, but if history is any indication, if Bitcoin volatility resumes and we start seeing this push back to upwards above the prior all-time high of 34.8 and it goes to 35, 36, 37, if it has a continued blow-off top type move, then again we would expect Ethereum to probably do okay against USD. We don't care about that, right? We're better than that. Let's look at the Bitcoin valuation. We're not going to hide from the Bitcoin valuation. I know a lot of people will tend to say things about their altcoin doing well, but it's always about, does it outperform Bitcoin or not during various times of the year? If it doesn't, then there's no reason to hold it, in my opinion. Not financial advice, that's just my opinion. Now, I don't consider Ethereum an altcoin for the record, but I'm just giving a generalized opinion here. So, if you watched the video a few days ago, let me know in the comments below. Remember, as we said, remember the end of December. Now, where were we? Let's see where we were when we made that video. So, December 31st was here. So, it was this one. So, we were at a valuation of 0.025, 0.0254. Now we're at 0.0283, 0.0283. Is this significant? Not at all, right? This is not at all significant. This is only about a 10% gain. So, if you get too far ahead of yourself and we start screaming that I told you so, I told you so, any rational person, right, would be quick to point out that even though this is a nice move so far, it still is within, say, a general downtrend, right? So we want that to break. We want this to break. And the only way this is going to break, again, is if Bitcoin stops going up. Or if it goes sideways, a slow bleed is okay. Basically anything but a catastrophic crash or a phenomenal move up. Anything other than those two things, then we're likely going to see Ether, Bitcoin continue to gain. But again, as I said before, we don't want to count our chickens before we hatch here because we are still so far trending down against Bitcoin. So let's not jump the gun. Again, as I said before, don't schedule your Forbes interview just yet. Now, what are some areas that, if this is a sustainable move, that we could see? Now, the first thing we'll look at, again, we'll go to the monthly time frame. So this is the monthly time frame, right? And one of the things we've noted is that the 20 month and the 50 month seem to be pretty well respected, okay, so far. The reason we say that is because, as you note, during a bull market, as we've showed before, well, the 20 month tends to hold a support, right? This was November of 2017. This was even April of 2018. So even after the bull market, this held as support, and it first started here. We just didn't have any data before that, but we pretty quickly moved above it in March, and we're well above it throughout all of most of 2017. Came back down to it at the end of 2017, and a final push at the beginning of 2018. We held this level as resistance for 5 weeks in a row. When we were trying to break through, we said once we break through, we'll be off to the races. We were. We know that in Q4, Ethereum tends to bleed against Bitcoin. It has. We also know that, if history is any indication, that Q1 tends to be better for Ethereum. It doesn't mean it will be, of course. No one knows. It just means that it tends to be better. And so far, of course, we have wicks below it. We don't care about the wicks. Our monthly is still above that 20-month SMA, or the 20-month SMA, which now is around 0.0249, 0.0248, depending on what exchange you use, but it's around 0.0249. You might say, hold up a second, you said it was 0.0251. We're in a new month. It's actually going down. The reason it's going down is because if you take a measured move from this month going back 20 months, you can see that 20 months ago we were actually higher valued by monthly close. So we're essentially replacing a lower value. We're replacing a higher value with a lower value, and it was already going down. We expected it to continue to move down in the short term. However, of course, if we bounce off of this level and start going up, then eventually this will start coming back up too. So, who cares, right? What about this level? Where was this? This was our summer top. It was at the 50-month moving average, identically at the 50-month moving average. Where does that put us? Well, it puts us at a valuation back then of 0.0405. Today, it's around, let me just get the exact number on here, 0.04147839. So let's just say 0.0415. Now, what does that mean? Well, we know the current price of Bitcoin is 33,616. The price of Bitcoin is not invariant. We know that it will vary, but let's just say that Bitcoin sits humdrum at 33.6, which it won't, but let's just suppose it did. Now, if we were to go look at the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation and say, okay, well, Ethereum Bitcoin again is at 0.0415. If we say 0.0415 times 36,000, let's just say 36,000, that would theoretically lead to almost a $1,500 Ether. And the way we would get to a $1,500 Ether would be for the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation to come back up to this moving average, right? And by the time we get there, this moving average could be higher, could be lower. It all depends on how we get there and how long it takes us for us to, in fact, get there. So one potential area to look at, of course, would be the prior all-time high. We know the prior all-time high is $1,400 or so, just over $1,400. So this will be an area that we certainly want to keep an eye on. Obviously, there's the big mental barrier of $1,000, right? If we switch Ethereum USD over to the monthly time frames, as we've noted before, we have a pretty nice symmetrical move. Again, these don't necessarily mean anything, but I like to comment on the patterns when I see them, right? And if we continue this move to the top, right? If we go to the top of the wick, then it's 1,400. If we go to, say, the top of these monthly candles, which we're getting pretty close to, it would imply an $1,100 Ether. So I think these are potentially on the cards, but again, this is not financial advice. It always depends on what Bitcoin does. There's no free lunch here. You will not find a free lunch in crypto. Now, what are some other things we can look at? Well, maybe something else we can look at is the overvaluation from the 20-week. Let's just take a look at that. Why not? So we'll look at this. We'll look at levels of overvaluation. Now, you can see we are higher overvalued in terms of this metric of overvaluation from the 20-week. We should probably put on the support band, the bull market support band. And you can see that the 20-week SMA is in fact at 483. The 21-week EMA is at 513. This would be the area we would want to hold as support in the event of a strong correction. Those are pretty far away, right? It seems like a crazy drop, a 50% drop, or a 50% drop from where we currently are. The 20-week SMA, it's 100% from there to get to basically where we currently are. So in the event of a correction, holding that level as support would at least potentially help continue the bull market. Now, I'm not saying we're about to drop to that level. Now, in terms of looking at overvaluation, we've only been overvalued by the 20-week higher than we are now a couple times in the past, but we were overvalued by several months above the 20-week SMA. So if we were to get as overvalued as we were 3 years ago in January, it would correspond to a valuation here of 1.04. What does that mean, right? What is 1.04? Well, as we said before, that metric is the natural log of the price divided by the 20-week SMA. Let's suppose that the 20-week SMA, we know right now it's at 484. By the time we continue a move, right, if it takes a few weeks, if the stars continue to align, let's suppose the 20-week SMA is at $500. So we'll say that's $500 and it needs to equal 1.04. So what price would get us to that valuation? Well, it would be around a $1,400 Ether. And so that would actually, again, correspond to the prior all-time high. So for us to get as overvalued from the 20-week moving average as we did back in 2018, then it would imply a $1,400 Ether. If we were to get as overvalued as we were in May of 2017, this was an incredible move by Ether. It would imply closer to 1.5. If we go solve for that, 1.5, then it would lead to a price of over $2,000, okay, over $2,000. So a pretty significant move. However, we know that at this point, Ethereum, had you bought Ethereum at the bottom, you would be up more than 10x. You'd be up around 943%. Remember, a 900% gain is a 10x because a 100% gain is 2x. So a 900% would be a 10x gain. If you had bought at the bottom, you would be looking at a 10x already. So to say that 2000 is off the table completely is not, it's really not, right? It's really not that far-fetched. It's another 2x move. Yes, it might sound a little absurd, but again, if the history of crypto has taught us anything, it's that it can really go much further past where a lot of people can imagine in the short term. But then once it does that, once we get to those high levels of overvaluation in the short term, people start thinking it can never go down, and then they just end up buying the dip for 2 years, right? How many people have lived through that, where you just keep saying, oh, I'm going to buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip, and it keeps dipping. So the reason why people say that is because they're in a bull market, they're so used to buying the dip, right? And it keeps going up. But eventually, you buy the dip and it just keeps dipping, right? It just keeps going down for the foreseeable future. So let's stay level-headed here. Remember, there is no free lunch. We'll see where this takes us. So far, it looks like we're back up into our green band, which, as we said before, was our theoretical reaccumulation band. We did drop below it down to the 20-month SMA. Now that we're back up in it, we'll see if we can get back into our general uptrend channel that we were in for the majority of 2020, and we were also partially in this in the end of 2019. So let's hope we can get back up into that level and get back on course. Now remember, I really can't stress it enough. It depends on Bitcoin. We want to see Bitcoin just chill out for a little bit, either bleed a little, right? Let the price of Bitcoin bleed, indicating maybe people taking profits from Bitcoin into other coins, or let it sit still. If it doesn't, is it a big deal? No. It just, to some degree, it just means we kick the can down the road and we wait until it does cool down. So hopefully this video has been informative. We just put out a couple different theoretical targets if we end up continuing this move and we see that we have a continuation. As we said a week ago or so, when Ethereum made a move against Bitcoin, we said, is this the breakout? And we said, no, it's too early to call. And it was, because despite the fact that it was an amazing move at the time, it was pretty impressive, right? That was a nice move. From the bottom, it moved up 21%, but then ultimately corrected back down. So here we're up 25%. We've come back down to 21%. So as I said before, we do not want to get ahead of ourselves. Cautiously optimistic is what I say, right? Cautiously optimistic. If it continues to come down, so be it. It probably means that Bitcoin volatility is remaining high. If it continues to go up in the short term, then it's likely because Bitcoin is letting Ethereum take the reins for a while. So hopefully this video has been useful. Maybe we'll see $1,000 Ether soon. If we do, I'm sure that'll be a big moment for everyone to be at a 4-figure Ether. That's pretty significant if we can make it there in the short term. And if we don't, I'm pretty sure we will later on. Remember, this is not financial advice. Also, the premium list sale is ending today. When I wake up in the morning, I will end the sale. So again, if you want access to the premium list and the risk dashboard, the Telegram alerts channel, the Telegram chat room, the TradingView indicators, the weekly videos, the weekly reports for the premium list, make sure you sign up today. This is your last opportunity to do so at the lower rate, so you can lock in the lower rate today. Tomorrow they will go back up. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully we're just getting started with the move, and hopefully we have a lot more to come in terms of where Ethereum might take us in Q1. Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe. Let's get to 80,000 subscribers, and I'll see you next time, hopefully at a 4-figure Ethereum.